Welcome to another edition of How to Fix It Yourself with Dave and Dave. Today we're going to be looking at the accelerator cable for the 2001 Nissan Pathfinder. Now, fortunately, we were able to get a factory cable for the accelerator pedal and going to the throttle. That's not always going to be the case. Sometimes you're going to have to get a generic one and be mucking around with doing a lot of adjusting and things like that. But this one we should be able to do a fairly straightforward replacement. Now, I will tell you that when I say a fairly straightforward replacement, it is very awkward. The system is in a very awkward position underneath the dashboard. And so while technically it's easy because you slide the old cable out, slide the new cable in, it is difficult from the point of view of having to turn yourself into a pretzel. So let's take a look at why we want to replace this cable at this point. So you can see how rusty the cable is and how many of the plastic shields have broken off and come apart on this. And so eventually what's happening is you're getting a little drag on the interior cable that is over here. So this is starting to drag from all this rust and everything that's on this cable here. So you'll notice the factory cable is all completely set up with, new rubber or plastic, whatever it is, that's going all the way around it to shield it from the weather and that. So while I still have pretty good sensitivity with the throttle cable, I do feel it's starting to drag a little bit here and there. So just from a safety point of view, it really needs to get replaced. So the way the cable is situated is this part goes on the inside of the dash, and you can see the pictures of it there on the inside of the dash of the old one. So that goes on the inside of the dash. It comes out through the dash. So when you remove it, you pull it through the dash that way. And when you feed it back to put the new one in, it comes this way through the dash. And then it's got this big long circle to keep it from kinking so that it has a smooth operation. Now, as you can see here, on the back side of the firewall, we've got a plate that this feeds through so that it can clamp tightly. So it has a plate on the inside of the engine compartment and a plate on the inside of the passenger compartment, or technically the driver compartment. And so we need to pull those nuts on the inside there and then loosen this plate on the outside and pull it all the way through, and then just do the reverse to put it back in place. So that's the procedure, and that's what we're going to do next is we'll get this old cable all unloosened from all the clips and everything so that it has a nice run back into the dashboard. Okay, so we loosened this nut, so this is now loose. We're going to rotate the throttle plate all the way top, loosen the cable there, and then you'll notice down here it's got the lead plug that's more or less welded to the cable. So we're just going to rotate that a little bit so as it pops out through that slot right there. So you can see how that fit in that slot right there, and we pulled that out, and that'll be the reverse of putting it back together again. So in order to make it a little easier to get to it, we're going to remove this panel right here. There's a screw back in here. You'll need to remove this attachment here for the hood release. And there's a screw way over here that you'll need to remove. And then when you pull it out, you'll need to be careful to disconnect the electrical underneath this panel here. All in all, it's not too terribly difficult to do. You'll need a little pry bar for doing interior work on the plastic, but you shouldn't have too much of a problem. If you do, we've got other videos where we've worked on the interior that we show taking this completely apart. So in order to get to all the nuts on this guy, you'll need to pull this one, which means you've got to pull this. This is just snaps on. You can just get right under some areas here where there's already reliefs and just pop that up. Then there's a bolt right here you need to loosen up, and then this panel comes out, and then you can take this all out there. So that's how you get to where you can remove that panel. So when taking the assembly apart, you're probably going to be better off just removing the throttle pedal or the accelerator pedal. It's just a couple of bolts to take it out of there, and it'll make your life a lot easier as you try and put it back together again, and also taking it apart. Now when you take it apart, you'll find that you're under the dash because you don't have a whole lot of working room with the cable, how much the cable will move. So just for ease, I strongly recommend you just go ahead and cut the end off of the cable and just not even fuss with anything else, because you're going to throw that cable away anyway. So just go ahead and do that. Now the cables are fairly stiff. They have a lot of resistance. They're very strong. So you'll probably need something more like a bolt cutter than just a diagonal cutter to get that cut. So this is the bolt cutter I use. I've got a small one, and I've got, of course, got larger ones. But I strongly recommend you use something like this to cut that cable. It'll make your life a whole lot easier. All right, so this is the replacement cable. It's, of course, as I mentioned earlier, a factory cable. So it's got the molded end clips right on the cable, so that it should be real close to the right length. These are the adjustment nuts that we'll use to adjust it a little bit. That should take to make sure it's set just right. We'll show you how to do that. Now that you've got this cable that you're going to put in, you've got this much play to play with when you try and hook it into the accelerator pedal. And so I recommend you do that outside in the car where you can get at it, because you've got to get this little clip pressed into the slot in the cable, and we'll show you how to do that in a little bit. But at this stage, what we need to do is we need to feed the cable into the engine compartment. So before anything else goes together, this has to go inside. So we'll feed the cable now. All right, so now we're going to start feeding the cable through the hole there. And it's always helpful if you have someone, okay, right about there. That's good enough, because we've got to put the insides together. So at this stage, you're probably better off going ahead and hooking up the accelerator pedal, so that because you've only got this much room to work, and if you don't, then you're going to be way up in here trying to put the clip in place. So you want to feed it so that the clip goes in from the side where the big heavy weight is. So the next thing we're going to do now that we're at that spot is finish pushing it up in there, and we're going to put these two bolts in place. So I've got to reposition myself, and then we'll go for that. Okay, now when you put the plate on there, you want to make sure that the bumper grommet is at the bottom side, so that when the accelerator pedal hits, it has a cushion there, so it doesn't have a metallic sound to it when you put it in there. All right, once you're tight, then be sure you get the spring put back in place. It's a little tight. Oh, come on, get down there. All right, okay, and so now you just need to get the cable put into the clips. So there you go. And then now this one is a pry open one. It has a hook down here. So when you take it apart, you need to take a little screwdriver and push in on it. Here, you're just going to snap it back together again. All right, and there we have it roughly lined up. So now we're going to show you how to put it back into the slot here, and how to adjust the nuts, and we'll be there. And then from there, it's just a matter of reassembling the dash. And but you know, at this point, we want to make sure that we have the the cable at the right length. All right, so you want to pull this forward and kind of bend this up and slide it into the socket there, get the cable up into the slot, then kind of work it around until it goes all the way in, and you can let it out. Now you can see at this point we have a fair amount of slop in this cable, so we're going to have to adjust the nuts to take that out. So where we want to be with this is we want to be, if you pull back and set the nuts about like that, you'll notice we have just a little bit of slop on there. Now what the service manual says you should do at this point is tighten this back nut up. Make sure you have enough room with the front nut. Is to tighten this back nut up until it's just dead tight like that right there. And then you want to back it off about 1 turn to 1.5 turns. So we can take and back it off about like so, and then that gives you just a little bit of play and flex in there so as it's not dead tight. You notice how this side with the automatic speed controller is a little bit loose. You want that about the same over here on this side as well. So now we'll just finger tighten these, and before we tighten them though, we want to press on the accelerator pedal and make sure that the whole range of this goes all the way, that we know it's going to close, but now we want to see if it opens all the way. So on these parts where you're pulling it through the wall and hooking up or checking the range on the cable, it's really helpful if you have a second pair of eyes or somebody else kind of helping out a little bit there. So one person can feed from the inside, the other can pull through, and then someone can watch here while you press on the accelerator pedal. So I'm going to go press on the accelerator pedal. Dave will tell me if we get a full range on it. Look good? All right, Dave says it's good. And the pedal feels good. Don't hear it feel any drag on the cable. So at this point, we'll tighten up the nuts and we'll wrap this up. You don't need to see us reassembling the dashboard. Just do the reverse of what you did going into it. All right, so now we're just going to take this and just tighten this up just snug. So we struggled a lot to get this apart because especially those nuts up on the firewall, because we were trying to use normal universal swivels, and they're just too sloppy to really use in a situation like that. And so as I mentioned earlier, I bought a set of these swivels rather than the universals, and it worked really nicely, as you could see. It made the job much easier. We were able to get it apart quickly, so sometimes you just have to go out and invest in the tools that you need to get the job done. I've wanted a set of these swivels for a long time, and I haven't really had an absolute need for them. So this gave me a great opportunity to expand my toolbox. So as we were assembling the dash back together again, we found that we couldn't find this one nut. And so we're going to need to go over to a hardware store and buy this one nut. But to know what size we need, it's really helpful to have a set like this. And we'll put the link to this in the description below. But it has both the metric in red and the SAE in blue. It doesn't have all of them, but it has the most common ones. So to know what size this is, I'm guessing it's probably an M6. So I can pull out the M6. It has both a spot where you can put a screw in or put a nut in. And so we'll just check that to see if I'm right. And sure enough, that goes in real nicely. So we'll go over and get an M6 flared nut to replace the one that we couldn't find. Hopefully this video has been helpful if you need to replace your accelerator cable, and we'll put links to the tools and the part number of the accelerator cable in the links below. Thank you for your time. We hope this has been helpful for you. Please hit the subscribe button, and we appreciate all the help we can get.